Hello, hello, hello. This is Misty Magdalena Grace with the new and improved version of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, where we talk about spirituality, psychedelics, plant medicine, microdosing, and really that journey within to finding your best innate wisdom, to your best health, your best wealth through all sorts of inner child healing, trauma release, grief recovery, overcoming addictions, and working with the mind, the body, and spirit. So go ahead, leave a review, subscribe, download. We look forward to your feedback. Thanks for tuning in today. Hello, everyone. This is Magdalena Grace here for another episode of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. I am your host of this show that's been going for 3.5 years strong now. Super excited today to be talking about one of my favorite topics. And I have talked about it before on the podcast, but it's been a while. And I thought with all of the changes in the world, we've talked about the age of Aquarius, how a lot of people are getting triggered by the world events, getting triggered by other people, getting triggered by things they see on social media, in the news, their beloved partners, and all of the things. One of the best ways to navigate these murky and sometimes troubling waters is to be the change you want to see in the world. And I really want to impress upon you that there's nothing better than having healthy boundaries set in place. And I'm going to talk about 3 different areas of life where healthy boundaries are important. I'm going to give you some quick tips and best practices. So this is definitely almost like a little bit of a teaching moment or a lecture or whatever you want to call it type podcast. And I will be bringing on my beloved partner, Emmanuel, because we, of course, one of the areas we want to cover, since tomorrow is Valentine's Day here in America, is the conversation of healthy boundaries with your partner, with your significant other in your primary relationship, whether you're married or coupled or whatever your situation is. It's really, really important to be interdependent as well as independent and stake your claim on your time, your energy, your talents. And I'm really passionate about this because I lost all boundaries for myself roughly around, I'd say 2011 is when it began, when I really got into the Facebook, right? Facebook Messenger and Facebook groups are really starting to consume my time. You can even ask my husband. I would, be on them at first thing in the morning, last thing before I go to bed. Before you know it, minutes turned into hours. So I didn't have any healthy, set boundaries. There was a lot of instant gratification and dopamine hits by being on Facebook and Facebook Messenger. Then add on top of that texting. Oh my gosh. In 2014, I started to really get involved even deeper into Facebook Messenger, having the notifications on my phone. But then everybody and their brother, 3 cousins twice removed, had my phone number, and everyone was texting. And before you knew it, I had no boundaries in texting. It was 24/7. And I was trying to be a good mom and a good wife. But hey, let's be honest. If your notifications are turned on all the time, you're trying to then become all things for all people. I started becoming codependent. I started to become addicted to these types of modalities to stay in communication, essentially to be feeling the need to be needed. I'm very vulnerable about my story because I see so many people struggle, especially if someone says, well, I have ADHD. Well, hell yeah, everyone should probably be diagnosed with that by now. I don't mean to make light of that, and I'm being serious here. The diagnosis is real, but then there's a lot of us who could probably go to the doctor because we can't focus. We're all over the place. Our head is on, Facebook, Instagram, texting, WhatsApp, all of these different mediums. And then you're also trying to work. You're trying to drive. A lot of people are getting into those habits of multitasking. And there's lots of amazing books and even TED Talks out there that multitasking isn't really possible because you can only really be present in the here and now. And so a lot of those things led me to drinking too much, working too much. And again, I take radical responsibility for that. It wasn't Facebook's fault. It wasn't my phone's fault. However, they were mirrors to me, just like what's happening in the world right now. If you watch the news, and you are on Facebook and you get triggered by what's happening in the world, well, then there might be an unhealthy boundary for you. You might get caught into a downward spiral of focus on all of these terrible things that are happening, and then you're distracted. And you can't be good for anyone because you're in these, emotional, especially if you're an empath, you're in these emotional downward spirals, worrying. There's a lot of fear out there around all of the things that are happening. So those are just some examples, guys, of why I really want you to really consider, if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling triggered. And what I mean by that is like something you see or hear, whether it's a text message, a Facebook message, a news story, um, something that suddenly just like jolts you and you have an emotional, physical response, whether you like feel chronic fatigue, could be those different kinds of responses. You feel depressed, you feel angry, you feel just like an energy buzzing through your body, and you can't sit still. All of these things are happening and coming up for us because we don't have any healthy boundaries in our life. So, first, the three categories I'm going to talk about, and then I'll invite my partner on here in a little bit, is boundaries with yourself, boundaries with others, and I'll explain what that means. And then, of course, boundaries with your partner, significant other. And my partner, when he comes on, we're going to explain that to a deeper level, especially since tomorrow is Valentine's Day. If you get into astrology, all of the astrologers are like, today, actually, the 13th, tomorrow, and Thursday, Mars is, squared with the Aquarius energy, which is a lot of it. Mars is explosive energy. Like we're talking arguments, fights, anger. I just got a text from a client today on WhatsApp. And he said, I'm so angry right now. I'm just so angry right now. And I'm like, yeah, it's happening in the collective. And if you don't know how to have boundaries, you might say something, you might do something that you're going to regret later. So if number one, boundaries with yourself, you got to put your oxygen mask on first. You got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, do I spend too much time on Facebook? Do I receive a text message and then I'm like, shaking if I don't respond to it within 5 minutes or check it, right? Do I have too many notification systems? Could I maybe pare down a little bit? Could I maybe turn off the notifications? Could I maybe, go to bed with reading a book instead of scanning, scrolling? So I can not only sleep better because the whole 5G thing is real. They're proving now 5G is creating more cancer. So the more time you spend with your phone, all of these things, right? We got to be considering our health, mental, physical, and spiritual. But also when you have that maybe that message you see just before you go to bed that really pisses you off, right? I've been there, done that. And then you go to bed and you can't sleep, right? Then your sleep hygiene is thrown off. So all of these different things that I'm talking about can really cause health issues. And I've seen more and more people with chronic fatigue, more and more people with gut health issues. That's actually the number one thing a lot of my clients end up coming to and talking about is their issues with gut health, their issues with food. Do you have healthy boundaries with your food? One of my things was since I was doing too much Facebook, then before you know it, I was doing too much alcohol, right? Too much work, too much, too much, too much, too much. So do you see the theme here? I couldn't get enough, right? And underneath that, we're not going to talk about that today. Was a limiting belief about not being enough, not doing enough, not having enough. But leaving that on the side here, it's just really like once you start, you can't stop. Then you start to overdo and overconsume whatever it is that's in front of you. And so, do you set any timers for how much time you're going to spend, whether it's on email, social media, whether it's eating? Do you eat in a healthy manner, or do you like eat really, really fast and shove the food down your face? Do you enjoy it? These are all like healthy tips and boundaries that you can put in place to help you have a healthier life and be less triggered. A lot of us are in fight or flight, constant go, go, go mode. And throughout that process, what I told you, I gained 40 pounds. I didn't sleep well. I didn't poop well. And before you know it, I had a lot of anger stirring within me, and then I'd be triggered and I would say things that I didn't mean, and I would take it out on my husband or my kids or, prospects or whatever. And so over time, it was actually really like almost 2 years of where I had to put my own boundaries on myself and those things in my life that were starting to overconsume me to a point that was actually putting my life in danger. And so a lot of the things that I did that I'll impart with you, starting small, right? Atomic Habits, if you've ever read that book, phenomenal book, by the way. Rome wasn't built in a day. Your habits that you have now that don't have any boundaries, they didn't happen overnight. So the first thing I did was I took Sundays off. It was really hard for me. I turned my phone off. I even got a second phone line that was for business. So it was easier actually to still have a phone to communicate with friends and family, but turn my business hat off. Then before you know it, I turned my phone off at 6:30 at night. I had, instead of starting at 5:30 in the morning with some business appointments, believe it or not, I would start at 8. Right? I started going to bed earlier, getting up earlier. Before you know it, I didn't work weekends unless now as a healer, there's times where I do, but I also limit how many weekends I'm going to work because I know myself. That's the ultimate thing is sometimes we have to go too far to know what our limits are. I do think that that's a thing. So I tested my limits. I exceeded and went too far on my own personal healthy boundaries. And so I had to start peeling back the layers of that. And before you know it, over time, I shed all those 40 pounds. I was no longer working, 12-hour days, 7 days a week, and still being available for text messages at like 9 o'clock at night. And then before you know it, my skin started looking younger. I felt happier. I slept deeper. I pooped better. I've had much better relationships with people because I'm also setting boundaries and voicing them to people. I'm reclaiming my power. When you don't have boundaries, you give your power away all the time, every day. And so to be able to create those boundaries for me, that was myself. I was the sovereign being in all of those examples. So that's kind of a quick segue to boundaries with others. And I already kind of covered that, letting people know, hey, maybe you only check your email twice a day. Hey, maybe you only check your text messages twice a day. If you're upfront with people and let them know, I use a booking link. It pisses some people off. Sometimes I have to use that booking link even with really, really good friends because I want to be present for them. So I've had to explain to people, hey, I need to use this so I can be more present for you. It's on my calendar. I won't screw it up and be flaky and forget. I know for me, I discovered I would schedule via text message with people. And guess what? Either I would flake or they would flake. It wasn't on my calendar. So oftentimes I would double, sometimes triple book. And that can still happen, believe it or not. It's all about being upfront, being honest, being in integrity with your word, and then showing up and being present in the moment. So, how do you communicate boundaries with others? Both personal, like your friend boundaries are important. Do you make yourself available to them all the time? And that's a personal decision. Or do you let them know when you're available, when you can really be engaged and have energy and time for them? Same thing with your business. What are your working hours? When do you turn your work hat on? When do you turn your work hat off? There's a lot of doctors and people, unfortunately, who are in those, high stress industries. They don't do so well because they are always on, but even then they have days where they take off to recover from that. When you're working 12-hour shifts or maybe 24-hour shifts, if you're in those industries, you got to really, really nourish and take care of yourself. My husband and I, we were healers and we do sometimes weekend retreats. And we've had to explain to even some clients, you know what, once we hit our quota of, how many weekends that we're going to do in a month, then we have to push people out to the next month, because if we don't, guess what? We're going to be sick. We're going to injure ourselves. We're going to not be good for anybody. So really think about, do you have boundaries in your personal life with others, friends, family, boundaries in your business? And how do you manage those expectations? How do you speak those boundaries? And of course, with humility, grace, love, and compassion. I'll be honest, I was scared at first because I had come from being all things for all people 24/7 to where I am now. There was a huge, fluctuation period where I got to experiment and I got to improve and course correct. It didn't happen overnight. And honestly, I'm still always revisiting my boundaries, my personal boundaries, and then my business and friend boundaries. So now, once you take care of yourself and once you have, your business and personal life, believe it or not, it's just as important, if not maybe more so, because if you're partnered, coupled, married, you also got to honor their boundaries. And I know my husband and I will speak and share a little bit about our story and what we've learned together as a couple. So, Emmanuel, I'm bringing you on.
Hey.
Welcome.
Mm.
Those of you joining me, maybe for the first time, or if you just watched this in a YouTube channel and stumbled upon us, Emmanuel is my husband. He is a shaman. We work in the medicine space together. He's also a ghost whisperer and does a lot of work with grief recovery, mediumship, channeling, helping people connect with their wise and healed ancestors, and doing a lot of other beautiful things in the world. And we've had our journey with boundaries, haven't we, honey?
Oh, yes, we have. Um, so many challenges when it came to managing boundaries, when especially in within the couple kind of dynamics. Um, it's a very challenging task to be able to manage boundaries because there really are three. That's the way I look at it. There are three kind of areas of management. So there will be, for example, me managing my personal boundaries, like you explained earlier. But then you have to do the same thing for yourself, right? So that's that two areas, and then we have to manage. How do we manage the couple? The boundaries for the couple, and then the boundaries for the couple also takes two flavors. It's what happens between us, right? And then what happens between us and outside of us, people who interact with us as a couple. So as I said, it's kind of a good challenge to have to figure out. And of course, as you said earlier, Magdalena, it doesn't happen overnight. It's truly a learning experience where you got to discover what needs to be done first of all. And as it's been said already, boundaries are so important. To recognize the need for them, to honor creating them, and to also honor communicating them. And all that happens within also the area of couples and partners in general. So yeah, we've been through a lot because everything that needs boundaries we've been challenged in one form or another. So of course it transferred into the couples dynamic, and I'm sure that a lot of people out there who are experiencing some similar things, challenges within the couples dynamic, that very well a good chunk of it could come just from unhealthy boundary settings, or still boundaries that are not in place where they should be in place. So
Absolutely. And I know you have a distinct, everyone's unique. That's what I always remind people. There's no one size boundary setting 101 for one size fits all for all of us. So I'd love to put you on center stage. I'll actually put myself backstage for a moment. I need to get some water. Speaking of boundaries, this girl has not hydrated as well as she could today because I was out volunteering at my daughter's school. So I know you have your own unique boundaries for yourself, and then your unique boundaries for others. You even have boundaries for ghosts. So I really hope you talk a little bit about that, and don't forget about that part. So I'll be here. So go ahead
Yeah.
and take it away.
Uh, yeah, that's a great reminder. Being in a spiritual practice, like I've been becoming actually more and more involved with that, and in the recent years, being in contact with the spiritual, planes, right? There are a lot of other players. Just I want to be blunt about this. When you get into the realm of spirituality, there are a lot of other players that also now all of a sudden, well, not necessarily all of a sudden, but you begin more aware of their existence and the interactions that happen between them and you. And talking about ghosts, that's a very good one to mention, because there was a time where the ghost, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, when I was barely beginning to understand that I am a ghost whisperer, I have the ability to communicate with dead people who have not crossed over, and even those who've crossed over also sometimes when it needed can communicate with me. So at the beginning of the pandemic, it was painful because I was bombarded constantly because I didn't know how to set boundaries. I didn't understand very well the concept of setting boundaries. So I had constraints coming from the normal world, right? Work, family, kids, as well as my spouse. And then I had those spirits who were bugging me, not necessarily because they wanted to do any harm to me. They just, I had not set up the rules. I did not explain to them how to engage with me. So they will just say, coming in and making themselves known at any hour of the day or the night or any place. And sometimes it was very traumatic. It was very scary. I had some close calls with death because of that. So very quickly, I would say that understanding the importance of boundary setting was brought to my attention really through, I would say, through my connection to the spirit worlds. And the teachers that I had at the time really were so clear. They said, you have to set rules. You have to establish contracts on how you get engaged with them. Otherwise, you're going to go mad. And it could be very dangerous for my health, as I said earlier. So I had to force myself to define those boundaries. So that was a great exercise for just learning to understand the purpose of boundary setting. And especially with the spirit world where, they could show up anywhere, anytime. It was so important for me to set rules, like saying, okay, you cannot show up in these places at those times. And it's some people would say, wow, you think that the spirits are going to listen to you? Well, guess what? Yes, they do, because you are your own sovereign being, especially when it comes to dealing with something of a spiritual nature. You have an authority that has been given to you by the divine. That's your free will, if you want to call that. It's a very sacred thing. And you have to be able to use it to set those boundaries. So I was able to discover that, wow, I have that power to set boundaries. And when I set them, even the spirits listen to me. So it was a beautiful kind of exercise for me to say, okay, where else in my life can I set boundaries? And interestingly enough, I would say the spirits listen better than my fellow human brothers and sisters. So there seems to be more less confrontation when it comes to setting boundaries with the spirit world than it does with here on earth with our fellow human beings. And that's where all the conflicts come. So I was really more challenged to establish the boundaries, for example, with my spouse. So she was going through her thing, I was going through my things, and we really needed to find a way to honor each other. And we had a beautiful training at one point when it came to couples dynamic, where the big lesson that I do believe really helped us and myself be on the right track when it comes to boundary setting was to understand that I have to care for myself first. It's the thing they tell you on the airplane when you're traveling, the oxygen mask, you got to put it on yourself first before you can, help anybody else. It's true when it comes to boundary settings. You have to set the boundaries for yourself first, because it's only out of the excess of what you possess, so the excess of what I have as a husband, for example, that I can bring that excess to a playing field with my partner, in this case, my wife. And same thing for her. we can only share what we have, and not just what we have, but what we have in excess. Because initially it's supposed to be serving ourselves. There's nothing selfish about it. It's just a law of preservation. If I am depleted, if I don't have any spaciousness, if I don't have the attention, if I don't have the presence, for myself, how can I be present for somebody else? I'll be just pretending to be present for them. And as we know, pretend doesn't really help a couple in situations like that. It was very clear, as I was saying, when we got that training on couples dynamic, that being able to care for oneself was so important. So I took time. I took time to set boundaries for myself so I could have the spaciousness and the energy, right? Both the spaciousness, the energy, and the presence. The presence when it came to being with my partner, which was my spouse. And it was such a beautiful change in how we were interacting with each other, because we were learning almost luckily together. We were blessed to be able to go through those transformations, side by side. It's really hard to be able to do that when the person on the other side is not doing that, because you feel like they're not putting either the effort or they're not respecting the efforts that you are putting in, right? And that creates another problem in a couple when you have, this disconnect between the two partners. When it comes to Valentine's Day and, couples dynamics, since Valentine's Day is tomorrow, the really beautiful advice that I have for each partner here is to care for yourself so well that you have excess within you that you can share with your partner. And it's really the best gift, the best present, the best manifestation of your love for your partner is to really care for yourself first. Not, and I keep saying, it's not in a selfish way. It's in a way that truly honors your ability to be the best version of you, so they can enjoy that best version of you. Otherwise, you're just selling yourself, at a discounted rate, or sometimes you just, as we say, you're selling yourself for free, with not really no value left in you for the other person to really get from you. And that I don't think that is a healthy kind of relationship, when you have a dynamic where one person or either sometimes even both. It's rare to have both, because usually there's one who receives more than the other and realizes that there's no boundaries from the partners, and they just suck all the life out of them, given the opportunity to do so. Respect that boundaries for yourself. It's going to help you respect that boundary for your partner, your spouse. And then as those boundaries are respected, you get more presence. I'm going to repeat that. You have to be have the presence and the energy, as well as the desire now to share the best of you with your partner will come from those healthy boundary settings. And the last thing I want to mention, when I was talking about all the different areas of boundary settings when it comes to a couple, is you got to protect your couple too. You got to be very careful. When the couple gets together, like Magdalena and myself, we have something we call our date night that we try to do every weekend. We want it to be really for us, just her and I. It's tempting to, let's bring somebody else, or maybe bring a kid along. No. As soon as you start doing that, you're compromising the couple's boundary, because you're allowing other people and it could be, people you love too. Like say our kids, of course, friends and family, we love them. So they're people you love, but they're compromising your boundaries for the couple that you are. So it's really important that the two of you, and that's what Magdalena and I do, when we give ourselves our time, we find a way to really make it our time, where we will, put ourselves in an environment that actually favors being present for each other as much as we can, with the least distraction from external parties, and getting in the habit of doing that creates a very beautiful dynamic within the couple, where we realize that we do really care for each other and for what we become when we get together, and we want to value that, we want to enjoy that, and we want to be able to protect that over time, so that we can truly find fulfillment in our relationship as husband and wife. Or, for other people, it could be just being partners, lovers, whatever works for you. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, those are good reminders because part of our passion and we've shared this many times, we thought, well, and I guess I'll speak for myself, I didn't think we were going to make it as a couple. And it was because we didn't have boundaries in our individual lives. And before you knew it, I was, pardon the expression, I don't want to ever offend anyone, but I was kind of like prostituting myself to everyone in the world because I thought I had to work hard, make a lot of money, spend more time working than with my family, which was such a scarcity mindset and came from, again, that not enough, never enough, limiting belief and ancestral wound. And I feel like I share that because I feel like a lot of us have that, especially in the materialism of America, the over consuming, the brainwashing that we've all received, right? Since in utero, and you got to make money and have the house, they'll pick a white fence, and you compare yourself to everybody else. So I had started falling prey to that, and allowing it to then spread myself too thin. And so once you do that, then date night goes out the window, and like, oh honey, we'll get back to it some a day when. And I missed some of my kids events that I'll never ever be able to get to see again because they were like karate belt awards, and I even missed my daughter's kindergarten graduation because I was trying to be someone I wasn't. My boundaries had completely radically just been blown up. And so we're really passionate about this because we believe it can be the number one, like, kernel. Even if you don't come and do ceremonial work with us, guys, maybe we light a little spark, a little fire to say, hey, have you looked at your boundaries? Have you created a sacred relationship with yourself first, with your meditation practice, whatever you need to do to put your oxygen mask on first, exercise, yoga, it's healthy eating. It's different for everyone. And then my husband has his routines that he does. We used to be so codependent, like we had to do everything together. We went from one extreme to another, and then we course corrected along the way. And then I honor his meditation time. Believe it or not, I used to have a lot of jealousy because I was like thinking, well, wait, I'm losing him, to these ghosts and these other things, right? That was my codependency talking and fear. And honestly, we triggered each other quite a bit as we were like coming back to center within ourselves, and then recognizing like, oh my gosh, he's an individual, I'm an individual. We got to figure out who we truly are, and then we come together in that beautiful sacred union. He feels amazing, I feel amazing, and we're interdependent. Kind of like, if you can see that little figure eight above our heads right now, it's one of my favorite symbols of that. Not necessarily even yin and yang, because it's not the yin and yang symbol, but it's kind of similar. But that eight of that infinity, that's where you want to meet, that sacred union center, where you're both coming from an overflow and a more full cup, as opposed to an empty cup, and robbing Peter to pay Paul from just your own energy. And then you can't be good for each other because you're not any good for yourself. So we covered a lot. I really feel like it's do you have anything else that you want to add that maybe you haven't shared yet?
No, I think that was a lot of information to to share. Hopefully it made sense. So, yep, I'm complete.
Cool. Yeah. So kind of like the closing thoughts we have is, if, especially, I mean, heck, even if you're not on a tight budget for Valentine's Day, or, you're just even dating someone and getting to know someone, have that conversation. What are your healthy boundaries for yourself? How do you take care of yourself first? How do you honor boundaries in others? And then how can we honor our boundaries with ourselves? A cute story from my great aunt Irma. She just came through, so I had to share this. I'll never forget the story she told me in Sunday school, of all places, and she's a very strong woman. And, she was like, and they actually got married on Valentine's Day. So that just came through too. I just remembered that. Oh my gosh, how cool is that? She's smiling down from the other world. But she would not allow her beau at the time, who she then married, she would not allow him to see her more than once a week. Like that was it. She's like, nope, we got to have space. She declared that healthy boundary, and guess what? They had the most rich, amazing, like 50 plus years in marriage, and she lived, super long, even past him, because they were really honorable with their healthy boundaries, and they put themselves first, their family, of course, their spiritual foundation was also really, really strong. And whether you call it spirituality or religion or whatever is your thing, my husband and I have, some have had some different experiences with that too, but we've had open discussions about it, and honoring each other's beliefs, honoring each other's positions in life, and past experiences as well, and just coming together with those healthier boundaries has opened up a whole new world of eradicating that codependency, that not enough, that jealousy, that anger, and some of those things that can happen inside of a couple relationship. So as you go through this holiday week or this month of love, I'll just also put this out there. My husband and I have a vision. We already served one couple this year. We want to work with 11 more. See, that's a boundary right there. We know our limits, because when we serve a couple, we can only do one per month. And we really want you to have a radical shift. And it's what we bring into the conversation inside of each of these 30-day containers, depending, give or take, on the couple. They may need more. We consult with you to discern, and boundaries is a huge part of that. But we start with the individual. We start with each partner individually and really ask them to go inward, and also take ownership of what maybe they have been doing that has contributed to the fact that they're maybe not as healthy in their boundaries with themselves first, and then with each other. And guess what? It's a beautiful thing when you take radical responsibility for that. And then of course the work that we do with you is to help you clean up the ancestral trauma. A lot of ancestral trauma, it actually goes back to no healthy boundaries, or your ancestors coming in and trying to kill mine or convert mine, or all of this, giving your power away, losing your sovereignty. That's in our DNA, that's in our cells, it's in our bloodlines. So we do a lot of work with cleaning that up. Those unhealthy boundaries from our ancestors, they're real, and they continue to keep going generation to generation. So our passion is to really help you wake up to those with love and compassion, forgiveness, and just rewrite the story. You can, maybe you didn't get the best example for healthy boundaries from your parents or your caregivers or your siblings, but you can rewrite that story, and we're here for you to help you with that. So this month only, we have, for the first 3 couples that reach out to us and do a consultation and then decide to work with us, and who want to have a delicious, loving relationship in 2024, we'll give you almost 20% off. It's several $100 savings off of our 30-day program, which includes medicine work and includes a lot of coaching one-on-one and couples integration coaching and prep work as well. So we'd love for you to reach out to us. Feel free to send me an email to support@microdosingforhealth.com, or if you even want to, you can text me at 612-799-8791. That's my business texting line, and we can have a conversation. And you can also just go to our website, microdosingforhealth.now.site. There's a couples medicine tab with a free consultation link on that page. We'd love for you to have an opportunity to save money, have a massive shift and transformation in your couple partnered relationship this year. And we'd love to see you feel the richness that we feel for each other, the genuine, authentic connection that we've been able to recreate and to rewrite the story, because we were pretty lost, dazed, and confused there for a really long time in our marriage. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Anything else, Emmanuel, before we sign off?
Oh, happy Valentine's Day. That's all I gotta say.
Yay. Happy month of love. Here's to your best health, guys, your best wealth, and your best wisdom. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe, download, leave a 5-star rating or review, and also please refer this to a friend you know who may benefit from this inspirational message. We hope to see you again. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel or join my Facebook community. And if you are looking to manifest your best health, your best wealth by trusting your best wisdom within, please go to my website, www.microdosingforhealth.com. Again, www.microdosingforhealth.com, to quiet your mind, get into your heart, heal your body, and manifest your best health.